Once you have your STL file, you're going to go to the little search down here and then go QuickCAM Pro. So just type in Quick, it should pop up. And you're going to double click in this red area here. Okay, then go to 3D model, go to your home drive and then find your STL file and open. Okay, and then we're going to go next. And we're going to get this arrow to go onto this side of the block here. So we need to orientate the model. So if I change the Z to 270, alright, and then change the Y to 90, alright, that arrow should be on top of the model that way with the car facing towards the left. Okay, once you have that, press next. And now we're choosing how deep we want the cutter to go when it's cutting out half of your car here. So at the moment it is set to half, but we want it to go a little bit further to make sure it goes just past halfway. So we're going to drop it down to minus 35.5 and then press next. Now for the billet size, we need it to be the same size as the balsa block that you've got. So we're going to change the Z to 65. Okay, and then we're going to go next. Alright, in the model size, it just needs to be set to make sure that, yeah, the scale is 100%. Okay, if that's not 100%, then you've got an issue with your model size. So, yeah, we'll go next. That's all good. For the model position, you just need to make sure that Z is at 0. Alright, the rest of it can be as it is, so we're going to go next. And then for this one, we need to change the Y boundary, alright, which is in this direction. Okay, we need to make sure that that has an extra 4 mil. Now, the reason why we're doing that, as you can see now that there's a gap on either side, okay, just so when the cutter goes all the way through the block, it's got that extra space to make sure it gets all the way past the block. Okay, so yeah, we'll be able to machine everything for you. Alright, once that's set, we'll go to next. Now we need to make sure that we're using a bowl nose 6mm cutter. Now, if your number one cutter or your number one tool isn't a bowl nose 6mm, what you do is you click on it and go edit. Okay, and make sure number one is selected. And then from here you can choose the type of tool that you want. So scroll down and you'll see a whole heap of bowl nose cutters. Alright, make sure you select the 6mm, press OK. Alright, and that should be selected there. Okay, if it's not, and there's something else that's there, please come and see me and I can help you out with that. Alright, once that's selected, we're going to go next. Okay, and we're going to add a machining plan now for this. So go add. Alright, and then we're going to go to raster finishing. Now there's heaps of other tool parts that you can use here. So roughing, for example, yeah, basically goes through and machines the car quite quickly, and obviously does quite a rough job, just to machine, yeah, heaps of the material out as fast as it can. But for us to get a nice clean finish, we're going to use raster finishing. Alright, it is a bit slower and you can obviously change the settings for it, but you do get a really nice finish at the end of it. So click on this one. Alright, now for the step over, we're going to leave it at 0.9 millimeters, alright, which is 15% of the bowl nose cutter. Okay, so what you can do is, especially if you're doing competition, you can decrease this down to just 1%, alright, and you'll get a really nice finish at the end of it. Okay, obviously it will take a lot longer to machine the car, but for competition, for the class machining, we can just keep this at 15%. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the feed rate is 3000. Okay, so if yours is different, you can change that. We need the spindle speed to be 23,000. The safe height needs to be 5 millimeters. The finishing amount needs to be 0. Raster angle. Alright, we're going to make sure that ours is 90. Now, I'm just going to explain this one quickly as well. With the raster angle, I'll show you this image here. Alright, so at the moment with 90 degrees, we're going in this direction. Okay, so that's how we're going to start basically from the back of our car across to the front. If you wanted to try different angles, obviously, 45 degree you can cut in that direction. So depending on how you want the cutter to cut is obviously the angle that you would choose. Alright, so for us we're going to stay at 90, but competition teams might want to decide to cut on a 45. Alright, so we'll keep ours at 90. Okay, then the last thing we're going to do here is go through and set a custom boundary. So click on custom. Okay, now the boundary is where the cutter is allowed to obviously go through and cut. We can set a boundary so it doesn't go past that point. So for example, on this side of the block, we don't want the cutter to go all the way through and cut through this front block here. Okay, because obviously our fixture is going to be holding onto that. So if the cutter goes through there, it's going to start cutting into our metal fixture. So we need to make sure that we change the minimum, and it's the X. Okay, so if we, oops, sorry, wrong way, we click up, okay, we can start moving that boundary across. Now, everyone needs to go at least 13, okay, just to make sure it doesn't cut anything. Alright, but at the same time, if your car is a lot shorter, so for example, if the front of your car was here where your front axle is, okay, you could bring this all the way across. Okay, so then the cutter only has to come up to this point here. Otherwise, it's just wasting all this time cutting material for no reason. Alright, the only thing that you need to be sure of is that you've got at least about 4 millimeters around that part. Okay, so if that's your front wing, for example, you would need to make sure there's about 4 millimeters there so the cutter can go through and actually cut that off. Okay. Yeah, but for us, like I said, we're going to leave this one at 13 millimeters. Okay, just so it doesn't go through and cut our fixture. All right. So for most of you, you'll probably use 13. All right, but for some students who have smaller cars, all right, obviously you can bring that further across. Okay. So once that's all set, all right, we can go to OK, and that's time to calculate our plan now. All right, so there you go. So now it's gone through and it's got the whole plan of how it's going to cut it. When we go next, we can start to see how that actually runs. So we'll press play. And you can see it starting from the back of the car and moving its way across to the front. So there's two things that you need to be looking out for. Number one is that, yeah, it's starting at the back of the car. Okay, if it is, that's all good. The next thing is, next thing you want to check, sorry, is that it's cutting all the way to the front of the car. Now, obviously for us, it's not quite cutting that section off there where the front wing is. All right, but I can't go back any further than 13 millimeters. So I'm going to just leave it as it is. And when I machine this one, I'm going to have to sand that off manually. All right, or cut it off. So, but if you, like I said before, have a wing or the front of your car is further this way, all right, obviously, you've got some room to play with. So you can obviously go back and change it. If you have to change it or change any of the other settings, just go back to previous and you can, fix up the settings there. All right, but if you're happy with this one, like I am, I'm going to go across and select next. All right, now we need to set the datum position. So this setting here needs to be, or this datum position, sorry, needs to be right at the back in the middle of where the canister hole should be. Okay, so the X is going to be 223. So that's right at the back of the block. All right, the Y should be 21. and then the Z should be half of the block, which is minus 32.5. Alright, so just rotate your model around, make sure that it's where that canister hole should be, alright, which mine is. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So the next thing I have to do is just go post-process, alright, and then save this model, save this file in my home drive. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that for now and press save.